Wolves have been awful this season. 11 games in and they have yet to win a single match in the Premier League. So that's where I come in, because I'm going to become their manager in FM26 at the exact point they are in real life. Sat bottom of the Premier League with just 2 draws and 8 points from safety. So it's my job to rescue them from what seems like the impending doom of relegation into the Championship, and maybe take them all the way to win a major trophy, because that's going to be our goal. Yeah, Wolves have definitely been the worst team in the Premier League so far this season. And I need to find a way of transforming this team into 1, surviving, and of course 2, winning a major trophy. And how we're doing it is we're actually using an up-to-date database with all the real results on FM Scout's website, which I'll leave a link for in the description. And while you're on the way down there, if you can make sure you're subscribed, I'd really appreciate it. We're en route to 200,000 subscribers. You can help. Now, my plan originally was to make this team like so defensive that they would just be really hard to beat. And then I thought that's not really that fun on Football Manager. And I looked at this team and I thought, they're terribly defensive. They're like really bad at being defensive. I need to do something different. And that's when I cooked up something, which I don't know whether it's going to work, but I really hope it does. Now, in possession, we're going to look like this. We have got just 1 centre-back and 2 full-backs, and we've got a half-back in, I hope, Krejci, who is originally a centre-back who can play centre defensive midfield. Going forward, we've got 2 attacking centre midfielders. We've got 1 winger, because we've got 1 or 2 good wingers who play on the right-hand side. And then we've got 2 strikers, and one of them's a target forward, because Orokadare? Because Orokadare is 6'6", quite good, quite strong, good in the air. I think we could get a good target forward with him. Now that's in possession, and you might think, well, you're at the bottom of the league, that's kind of crazy. Out of possession, we're doing this. We're going for like a 3 at the back, and we're almost bringing everybody down, so we're strikerless. Now I actually got inspiration for this tactic, because while I was getting the database with the real-life results, this was above it. And then I had a little play around with it and decided I wanted to try something similar myself. So we're going for a cautious mentality. I think the other one was attacking. But we're taking a lot of the same aspects where there's 1 centre-back, but I've changed a few roles around. We've got a half-back, we've got a winger, we've got just 2 up front, but then out of possession, we're going for a flat 3 up front there. I don't know how this is going to do, but I know for damn sure it's probably going to be better than what they've been doing already. Because just 2 draws and back-to-back games, and then the rest, all losses, well, you ain't going to survive much longer with that. Now, of course, with this being in November, and I'm recording it on the exact same day as you can see up here, we've got £31 million, but we can't touch that until January anyway. So the first couple of games, we're just going to be stuck with what we've got. And we haven't got anything great, I'll be honest. So I need to plan for the future, for January, for sure, with £31 million, which is quite a nice little transfer budget for a team like Wolves. But I'm curious as to see how we can do with this. And we've got some good fixtures coming up that we might be able to pinch some points from. Crystal Palace at home to begin with. Going to be a tricky game, but you never know. Aston Villa away, and Nottingham Forest at home, who is the team above us. After that, that's when it gets a little bit trickier. We've got Manchester United twice, we've got Arsenal, we've got Liverpool, and even Brentford at home is a difficult game, all in December, before we even get to January. And January, we've got Newcastle and Man City in there. So the challenge has been set. We need to survive. We need to take this team and try and survive and avoid relegation this season. Then, of course, build on it and win a major trophy. As easy as that. First game in charge then against Crystal Palace. Can we get our club's first win of the league season? With Palace fairly high up the league table compared to us, I wasn't expecting much. But we did take the lead in just 24 minutes thanks to Andre. It lasted all the way up until the hour mark too, until Jean-Philippe Mateta equalised, and that's when I thought our heads would drop. However, it seemed our mad master plan was working, because a cross to the back post where Orokadare was chilling seen us regain the lead. And just 3 minutes later, Wolves fans finally had something to cheer about this season, because Andre's second solidified the first 3 points of the year. It's progress, but we've got a long way to go, and we're still sat rock bottom. But the next match was a big one, away to our main rivals Aston Villa, one that the fans really don't want to lose. However, it was not a good start, and at half-time we found ourselves 3-0 down. Second half, we did go more attacking and managed to pull one back, but it was just a consolation goal. The following month of December was still a rough time, and that first victory against Palace seemed like a distant memory, although we did snatch a draw at Anfield. Just 2 points from the whole month against Forest and Liverpool, and ending with a loss to United again going into January. Things were looking bleak for us, and the Premier League we're still 8 points away from safety. With the transfer window open, and while we're looking for targets, we're also receiving bids from Arias, and I've decided to cash in and try and get some better replacements. Which might be a mistake, because then in the following match against West Ham, he only went and scored the winner from the penalty spot. But I need to be ruthless, and he is gone. My first signing in though is Harvey Barnes. He was transfer listed at Newcastle and of course is strongest from that left wing. Followed by Romeu, who's going to give us a bit of grit in that defensive midfield position on a free transfer. With the main signing being another midfielder in Arnie Engels from Celtic, an advanced style centre midfielder who will work his ass off for the team. And he got an assist on his debut against Newcastle in a 1-0 win. We followed that 3 points with one more in an away draw to Manchester City before losing to Bournemouth at home. And that still leaves us 5 points from safety and still bottom of the league. However, with our new signings, we made some tactical tweaks to try and get the best out of them to avoid the drop. And to an extent, it really worked. We won the next game at home to Chelsea 1-0. We then beat Forest 4-2 and progressed through to the FA Cup with a 4-0 win and stayed unbeaten throughout February, drawing to Palace and beating Villa. Getting revenge from the earlier match against our rivals we had against them with a late goal to seal a 1-0 win. In March, we lost 2 league games but won 1 and carried on progressing in the FA Cup. And in April, the light at the end of the tunnel was there as we defeated Leeds 1-0. A draw to Spurs seeing us drop back into the relegation zone, but we were there, battling for survival, and we stood a chance. But there was something else going on that was, well, quite magical. We had somehow barged our way through every round of the FA Cup so far and eventually found ourselves in the semi-final against Forest, defeating them 2-0 to stamp our ticket in the final against Liverpool. Our main priority, of course, was to survive in the Premier League. We got another 1-0 win over Sunderland, taking us back out of the red zone. Safe by 2 points, and with 4 games remaining in the season, we basically have 4 cup finals, with one of them literally being a cup final. And we continued our strong defensive form, drawing 1-0 with Brighton and 0-0 with Fulham going into the final day. So just for today, we can forget about the Premier League as it's in our own hands, and we can try and win a major trophy at Wembley. Liverpool took the lead early in the second half through Konate's big header from a corner, and we struggled to create many chances. We were holding Liverpool though, keeping them at bay until Isak let Szoboszlai slide through to double their lead. It wasn't all sad times. We did show a bit of fight down the left-hand side, and Harvey Barnes even got one back. But it was too late to make a push for a second, and unfortunately this season we won't be lifting any trophies as Liverpool win the FA Cup and we go on through to our full focus on the final day of the season. A draw wouldn't be enough either, because if West Ham wins, their goal difference might be better than ours. We'd need a win, and we are away to Burnley. We did have a huge bit of luck because Burnley actually received a red card to Lodi within 6 minutes, and then in the second half they received a second red card to the substitute left back which came on for Lodi, which I don't think I've ever seen happen before. And at that point we were already 3-1 up, and it meant the game was over. A phenomenal performance on the final day, 5-1 winners, and to be honest, Harvey Barnes has been a cracking signing for us. We've survived our first mission, staying in the Premier League, and we're looking at it. Harvey Barnes, 5 goals, 5 assists from January. A good little signing that was. Strand Larsen was our top scorer with 10, not exactly amazing, but Arnie Engels came in January, 6 goals, 8 assists. Played midfield, all right midfield. Unbelievable player. But yes, we survived. In fact, we finished in 16th place, which is really good. 39 points. West Ham got relegated on 37, which is quite high, really. So they go down to the Championship instead of us, alongside Sunderland and Burnley, another 2 of the newly promoted sides. And we now need to build for next year. And we've only got £7 million at the minute. We eventually did get given our budget of £30 million, and good job too, because I wanted to sign players like Ogbu to strengthen our defence for £12.5 million. Jonas Wind also joined us in the summer on a free transfer from the Bundesliga. But then on a 2-in-1 day deal, we welcome in former Liverpool defensive midfielder Fabinho on a free transfer, as well as striker Muleka for £15 million up to 23. And we made some money back by selling our right back for £38 million and a Rokadare for £15 million both to Al Hilal in Saudi Arabia, which left me just enough to purchase a right winger in Patati, who will go straight into the first team, as well as a backup youngster for my attacking midfield. Tactically, we switched things up and went from 1 centre-back to 3, and losing the fullbacks, which out of possession would be occupied by our 2 defensive midfielders. However, with the ball, Fabinho pushes forward as an advanced centre-back. And before we knew it, our first game of the new season against Southampton was upon us, and a wave of optimism after avoiding the drop last season was in the air. And we left the home fans happy as we wheeled away with 2 goals from our new striker Muleka in a 2-0 win. We even followed that with an away win against Chelsea in the following fixture, beating them 1-0. It didn't all go to plan though at the start of the season. We then hosted Liverpool, losing 7-2. Obviously we were very attacking, beating Sunderland in the Carabao Cup, which is great, but then again, losing another fixture against Manchester United. The important thing is that we can push through the bad results and gain points against sides that we expect to put up much of a better fight against. And as the next couple of months towards Christmas happened, that's exactly what we did. New signings were combining well, the defence were great, and we looked lethal on the counter. It was very much a case of win or lose. We didn't believe in drawing a game until the last part of December against Forest, and those results have seen us just sat outside the European positions in 8th place going into January. We then sold Strand Larsen in January because we now have Muleka, and my eyes were looking for a new goalkeeper. And so I spent the money on Safanov, a 27-year-old goalkeeper stuck on the bench at PSG and deserving of a number 1 spot. And hopefully this season gives us the drive and push that we need to finish in a European position for season 2. Unfortunately, we did run through a bit of a bad patch as expected, losing games against big sides and dropping silly points on the road. But in March, we played only 2 games because we were knocked out of both cups against Spurs and Palace, and we won both of them, and those 6 points kept our hopes high going into the final 2 months, as we were sat in 9th place, 6 points behind Newcastle, who are likely in the Europa League spots at the minute. April was a good month too. We only lost 1 match, and we managed to defeat tough opponents such as Forest with ease 4-1, then went straight into an away fixture with Leicester and beat them 2-1 with 2 goals from Jonas Wind. And that brought us closer, just 3 points behind Newcastle with 2 games remaining. We were dominant against Brighton next, handing out a 3-0 win, but our last match was against our main rivals in the league, Aston Villa. And they're pushing for the top 4 position, so you just know that they were putting everything into this match. But we took the lead after just 7 minutes. Unfortunately, we couldn't keep them quiet nor find a second before they eventually scored an equaliser in the second half. And disappointingly, although Newcastle lost, Spurs picked up 3 points against Southampton, and they left us in 9th place, just 1 point behind 7th position and probably out of the European qualifications. Still a better season than last, obviously, but we really wanted to push this season, and getting that close is just rather frustrating. Muleka was great though, 22 goals from him. Jonas Wind in that attacking midfielder role, pushing up to a striker in 10 goals with 8 assists was also fantastic. And Harvey Barnes again, putting in some good performances, but we need to capitalise on that now. We need to build on this squad. We've only got £29 million in the summer to do so. Unfortunately, Season 3 included Al Hilal coming in for a 3rd player of ours as they activated Pratati's release clause. Transfers in started with a free transfer from Celtic in Maeda, who can cover both the left wing and striker. 30-year-old Nino comes in from Zenit next as our solid centre-back option for us that only costs £10 million. Replacing Pratiti was Isak Johannesson, a very clever Icelandic player that we brought in from Cologne for £25 million. Oscar was another free transfer, someone who can fill in multiple roles as I'm still undecided on what system I want to play this season. And finally, we brought in another right-sided midfielder from Bilbao in Ola Berrieta for £17 million, who is still young, looks great on the ball, and has a place to grow. And to give you an idea of what I'm thinking this season, we're going to rock a 4-1-4-1, where in attack, we're pushing the midfielders forward with these three guys being key in their spots. We are trying to be rather direct with our play and looking to be quick on the counter-attack to catch the opponents off guard. Still counter-pressing, but with a standard defensive line and getting stuck into the tackles. Our plan is to basically play incredibly counter-attacking football and try to exploit gaps in the opposition and have so many people go forward that when we do break, there's always a lot of options. Could backfire though, we'll have to see how it goes. If we are going off of our first 3 games, however, that still tells me absolutely nothing as to whether this is going to be successful or not. And so the first half of the season went a lot better than what we thought in the end. Once we got going, we shocked a few clubs, including Villa, who we beat at Villa Park 3-1. And we found ourselves in 5th place, overtaking them going into the new year with a game in hand as well. January was a tough month though. We had a couple of injuries and lose games to Norwich in the FA Cup and Palace at home in the league. February was even worse, as we started the month beating Brighton 2-1 to then losing 3 in a row. It was once again March where we were solid, winning both games, including a 7-2 victory at home to Everton. By that point though, we had dropped off from 5th place quite a bit, and we were now chasing the Europa League spots again with Spurs and Chelsea. April started with a 3-3 draw with rivals Villa at home, where we took the lead on 3 different occasions, only for Villa to keep pulling the score back level, eventually finding the final equaliser on the 87th minute. A 0-0 draw followed against Manchester United, and then another 3 points finally came as we defeated Fulham at home 2-1, leaving us in 8th place with 3 games remaining, but with 2 incredibly tricky fixtures to go. And so to stay in the European qualification spots, we probably needed to cause an upset somewhere. And that's exactly what we did at the Etihad. After going 1-0 down, the second half we managed to score 2 goals and in the process take City out of the title race and gifting it to Liverpool. We then absolutely destroyed Forest 5-1 at home, which meant even if we lost to Liverpool ourselves, we may still have a chance to finish in a great position. And that's exactly what happened. We lost 1-0 at Anfield to Liverpool, but we weren't too worried about it because we actually finished in 7th place, and although it doesn't say so yet, I really think that is at least a Europa League spot for next season. There were no real standouts in terms of any goals. I mean, Johannesson managed to get 16 with 11, which is absolutely fantastic from attacking midfield. I was a little bit disappointed in Maleka, but he did pick up a big injury, which meant he missed quite a lot of the season, only starting 24 games, which means 15 goals, and that isn't too bad. But Harvey Barnes again, what a signing it was in that first season for us. He's now 30, put in 10 goals and 14 assists. However, I'm very proud to say that we're back with big transfer budgets, because £82 million should be enough to make this team ready for, hopefully, the Europa League. The summer of season 4, and clearly if you're still here you need to make sure you are subscribed, because there are loads more challenges on the horizon that you don't want to miss, and over a third of you aren't subscribed yet. Just transfers in this window as we welcome in fullback Brooke Norton-Cuffy for 17 million. That's right, we're improving our fullbacks. We also signed Jared Branthwaite from Everton for £38 million on a relegation release clause as Everton went down to the Championship. And on the left hand side of defence we have Tom Roth coming in from Union Berlin for £25 million. We've gone all out for our defence, but it isn't the only thing we've strengthened, because we have 3 free transfers coming in, starting with a winger in Johan Kathleen, who has great physicals, dribbling and flair. Luis Sinistera is another winger we got on a free transfer from Bournemouth, and we almost bought him last season for £30 million, so I'm glad we waited. But the best signing of them all is another 3 transfer in Nico Paz, an elite attacking midfielder that could be the key for us this season. Give the ball to Paz will be my number 1 instruction for the rest of the team. The way that we are set up is with Johannesson on the right hand side, because Fer Lopez has made an appearance recently, leaving our bench absolutely stacked with attacking talent. And our first 3 games of the season could not have gone any better, which we also continued in the Europa League as Nico Paz began turning up the quality and bagging a hat-trick against Leverkusen. In fact, things are going really well until an awful 5-game spell in mid to late December, which puts us down in 6th place going into the new year in the Premier League. But in the Europa League, we were absolutely cooking. And we went through the league phase with 8 wins from 8. We then defeated Leverkusen again, this time across 2 legs, 6 goals to 3. Back in the Premier League, we picked up 4 points from 2 games against our rivals as we drew with Villa and we beat West Brom. We then had to face Villa again in the quarter-finals of the FA Cup in the following match. And there was just 1 goal that was scored. It was in the 92nd minute and it came off the boot of Luis Sinisterra. And with us ambling down in 8th place in the Premier League, our focus is directed at the Cups. With Sevilla in the quarter-finals of the Europa League, it was again a tight matchup, but after a 1-1 draw at home, we somehow got an amazing 1-0 away win thanks to Maleka's goal. Which means we have 2 semi-finals ahead, one against Spurs and the Europa League against Midtjylland, but if we win, it could be Spurs again in the final of that competition. Spurs were there ready to spoil the party, however, as they knocked me out of the FA Cup, beating us 2-1. So we had to travel to Denmark against Midtjylland, and unfortunately we conceded rather early on in the first half. Things weren't looking too promising at that point. That was until the second half, as Barnes found Paz, who somehow squeezed it in from a really tight angle, leaving it 1-1 going into the second leg. And this was our moment, because we came flying out the traps on the attack from kickoff for Paz to find Barnes, this time to score immediately. And from there we played like actual wolves. We were hunting the ball down in packs, and by the 14th minute Paz had opened up a 2-goal lead, which was then made a 3-goal gap soon after. From here we comfortably took down our Danish opponents to win 5-1 on the night and progress through to the Europa League final, where of course we will be playing Spurs after they defeated Palace. And so the stage was set. We had taken Wolves from impending doom, 0 wins and relegation looming above them to the Championship, to surviving and building this very special team, taking them all the way to the Europa League final, where we're seeking revenge over Spurs. And unlike the FA Cup semi-final against them, this time we were on the front foot, and Barnes found Paz and his cross was put in by Maleka. Spurs did trouble us a little bit, but we were by far the better team, and on 12 minutes Maleka scored again. It then stayed 2-0 until really late in the second half, where Spurs did finally manage to break us down, but it was too late. And Wolves are your Europa League champions, and that is how I rebuilt the worst team in the Premier League. And on screen right now is what happened when my dad spent 10 seasons as the manager of newly promoted Sunderland, creating the craziest tactic you'll ever see.